What is up? Today I am going to show you how to design impacts. I actually made one and I was like, yeah, let's make a video about designing impacts and talking about it. And there is no wrong way to do this. If you make a really cool impacty sound and you just save it and use it in your song, that's great. But I'm going to show you how I use it, and we'll talk about like what you're actually aiming for when you design the impact and the sound like that. So the impact I designed sounds like this. And yeah, it's pretty cool, really epic, like space sci-fi sounding. I just like making stuff like that, honestly. But yeah, let's get right into the DAW Bitwig Studio. Let's go. Make sure to like the video, subscribe, and hit the bell to stay notified if you would like. But let's get to it. When I usually approach a sound, I'm like, what do I want it to sound like? So, impact. I'm like, okay, so I know it has to have a kick at the beginning, and it has to be a long, drowny sound, but it has to have an end, so it can't be too long. So I was like, how about we make like a 2-bar impact, just a small one. I was going to do a 4-bar one, and then I was like, no, let's just do a little simple one. So the sound, pick your favorite synth, any synth you want, anything, like whatever you want. It doesn't matter what it is. For this example, I picked the Polygrid because I just like the Polygrid, and I made this little weird sounding patch, pretty much. And I will solo this, and I'll let you listen to it. And you're like, man, that sounds harsh. I was like, yeah, it sounds pretty harsh. But this right here, when I listen to this, I'm like, that can be the top end of my impact, like that, the actual sound itself. And then you'll manipulate it into something else. So I'm like, yeah, that sounds really good. And if you're wondering what this is, it's actually from a sample pack that is not out yet, but I want to put out soon. And it's called the Crushed sample pack, and it's actually a bass loop. And it's the bass loop C#7, and it sounds like this. I'll play the whole thing. And it just sounds cool. It sounds really like a really heavy guitar. But I was like, let's put this into the sampler inside the grid, put a comb filter, maybe some distortion, mess with it a little bit, see what we can get. I put it on the texture, and if you notice, the root key is D#3. It's the best in my mind that is sounded. I like that sound. It could be deeper, it could be lower. You can pick whatever you want. So I was like, this is a good top end initial sound. So that's it for that, because you could pick any synth. You could pick Serum, you could pick Vital, anything, and just make something cool. And then the second thing I got here is a kick. That's it. I used the E kick. It's tuned to D#, and it sounds like this. Just a simple subby kick. And I'm like, yeah, that sounds like a good kick. And then the third thing right here is just a sub, a pure sine wave. And that's it. That's it. It's just pure sine wave. You bounce those down into audio clips. So I bounced all 3 of those down. You can see I have my sub. I duplicated my sub because I actually like to split my sub and my mid frequencies. So right here, you can see on the sub channel, it's only doing like 20 hertz to 65 hertz. And that's it. It's pure sub. I just like having pure sub in my sounds. And then on this mid one, it is 65 to 250, and it's just mid. And I put distortion in front of the EQ because I like this a grittier sound to the sound, so it sounds like this. It's just a little bit of a fuzz amp sound. It sounds really cool. And then, of course, rendered down my kick. I put an EQ on it. Nothing too special. Needed it to like be a little poppier and more of a kick instead of just a sub. So it sounds like this. It has more of a transient. It sounds more like a kick. That's what I'm trying to say. And then the last thing was the high end of the sound. It was from the grid. And I put some effects on it. I put blur, and I put a pitch shifter. I actually put the pitch shifter on it so I could mess with the grain, and I turned it down 12 semitones. So I will actually take off the pitch shifter and the blur and let you listen to it by itself. And you're like, that sounds like turds. Yes, it does, but it gets better because of the effects. Effects do everything to the sound. And I also faded stuff out. So I went over here and I faded like it all the way over as much as I could. High end right here, the actual grid sound itself, it sounds like poop. It just rings out for a long time. And I didn't like that. So I was like, yeah, I'm going to cut it in half. So that's what I did. So after you put some effects on, it sounds great. It sounds really cool. Now listen to it. Has that low, tony, alien sound. And then when you add this mid sub frequency right here, like it adds this little extra fuzz. You barely hear it, but it gives it a lot of texture, like to the sound. And then if you have the sub and then the kick, and it sounds like this. And then you're probably like, yeah, that sounds cool, but can you make it cooler? And I'm like, yeah, I probably can, and I'm going to. So, another important thing, I used a preset on the group. I used Neutron 3. And all I did was I went to a kick preset. I went to the drums, kick, and then I picked, which one is this? I don't even remember which one of this is. But I think it was knockin' kick drum or kick enhancer. I just clicked one of those and it sounded good. But you can pretty much click any of them. You can do the thud kick. You can pick the punchy kick. You can pick whatever one you want. Just make it sound good. That's what it's all about, making the samples you make sound good. So then you want to bounce this down into one audio clip, just one, and then mess with it further. And you're probably like, why you keep going on and on with the sound? Like, you render it, you mess with it, you render it, you mess with it. Because I think that's the best way to evolve the sound. You can just make it better, better, and better. Or if you're not very good at like this, like I used to not be good at this at all, I would render it and I would have to delete it and go back to step 2. Render it, put effects on it. It still sounded like shit. So I'd have to go back to step 2. And really important, forgot to say this. I say this a lot. Make sure you mix in your sounds. You see how the low end is really low, negative 18 decibels. Then I boosted the mids. Well, I lowered them. It starts at negative 10 decibels. Lowered them about 1. And then the kick is up, and then the high end is up too. A little lower from the kick, but if you mix this well, it'll sound good together. Moving on, after you put everything into one clip, one audio clip right here, you're going to want to put effects on it. And then you can turn these effects off, and then I'll play the sound. Sounds cool. Add EQ, some ROM, transient control, and then a compressor. And then it sounds like this. It just gives it some goodness. It just amps up the sound. It sounds great. But remember, I'm not an expert. I just like making cool sounds. And if you follow these steps, you might be able to make cool sounds too. And if you don't follow these steps and want to do it yourself and still make cool sounds, I appreciate you. Because that's awesome. Just make cool sounds. Thanks for watching the video. If you liked the video, give me a like, hit the bell to stay notified, and subscribe. Have a good week, rest of your day, whatever you're doing. Have fun, and make cool music and sounds. And new music coming soon. Peace. Bye. See ya. Bye.